morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News, where we rate AI developments essential, important, or optional. You could follow along. The articles are at gaiinsights.com/articles. And please let us know in comments what you think about the topics that we are discussing. Today, I have John, Ankaj, Paul from our regular crew, and Karen Pispisa, who is now on contract with Netflix. Sounds like lots of fun, and former Google and Meta. Welcome, Karen.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the first article, Ankaj.
Thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Harvard Business Review, and it is titled "The Risks of Letting AI Direct Conversations."
Yeah, so it's about what questions bots ask versus executives. What did you and what to do about it, if anything? John, what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I was going to give this an optional. I spent a lot of time at the beginning of my career when I was a professor, full-time professor at Harvard Business School, thinking about questions, because discussion teaching is the essence. The essence of discussion teaching is questions and their quality, sequence, effect, and so forth. And what this study did is they interviewed a number of senior executives, and they looked at the kind of questions they have. That is, exploratory questions, possibility questions, and so forth. And then they compared it to the models, and they thought the models were not as useful in terms of exploring the space of a problem solution and its effect on organizations and maybe some risk. And I give it an optional because I think that the first of all, the insights aren't. I didn't find the data. I didn't find the data very compelling. Frequency of questions and structure and so forth. They're so sensitive to the models are so sensitive to interaction patterns, role, context. It's the question. It's let's see how to put this. It's comparing a structure from human conversation, which only partially ports over to machine conversation with humans. And so I think that the structure of it's incorrect, and the fact that they didn't do anything in terms of if you're going to do something in parallel, humans have a natural structure. It's evolved over lots of years. If you're going to start interrogating machines looking for the kind of questions, I think you have to do more than what they did in terms of understanding the possibility space for machine questioning. So not only that, but I just don't think it's not very it's not very actionable. The world is going the opposite way from this. The real issue that's going on is agentic behavior and how questions ask other machines, how agents ask other machines questions is not even thought about in this article. So I thought it was basically, how to care for your dinosaur just before mammals take over.
That dinosaur analogy again.
That's another quote from John. Okay, Karen, what did you think?
I look at this in terms of a problem and what's the most immediate fix. I agree with John, it's optional. For me, if I were to want a model to question me like a human, I would literally flip HBR's leader question mix right in the article, right into my prompt. And I would even put it into a custom GPT, a Claude skill, or a Gemini gem, and just have the model know I want it to question me in that sense, as another expert would. You can also give the LLM a persona or role. I often say, you are a data analyst, you are Steve Jobs, you are Jamie Dimon. Just, kind of give it that personality to emulate. And the third way is to really just have the LLM ask you questions. You could just say, query me on all facets of this problem so that I can make an independent decision. I do agree with that it's optional, though.
Yeah, I also spent some time in decision-making theory and application in business and what questions to ask. I was actually triple optional. Ankaj, what did you think?
Wait a second. Luda wrote a fantastic book on this subject long before Daniel Kahneman talked about System 1 and System 2. Luda laid it all out in the context of managerial activity. So you may not be as famous, but I think you're more thoughtful.
Oh, thank you. That's a great compliment. What did you think, Ankaj?
I agree with John and Karen. This is an optional read, Luda. But I think what is important is to understand that these questions. So I have two examples here. One is Paul and I have been working on a new feature for our AI factory. Paul always says that, okay, ask the bot to ask you 20 questions so that you can develop a good PRD, right? So having those set of questions, as Karen mentioned, giving the bot persona that okay, you are a product analyst or a product manager, and ask me these set of questions so that I can develop a good product. That's very useful. And the second thing is I work on a lot of subjective stuff with these set of bots, right? All the research that we do, and across different set of bots, Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini, you see a very different behavior in terms of the kind of questions that they ask us. So, for example, if you don't give a persona to Claude, it just refuses to do stuff. I think that problem has increased with Opus 4.6. I think the thinking mode is taking it somewhere else. So it's not getting useful. ChatGPT, it asks very useful, specific questions which you can use in your context, right? Gemini just blows it sometimes. Sometimes it's useful than both of Claude and ChatGPT. So I think it's very important to understand how your entire conversation, the work you are doing with these bots, that is influenced by the questions that they ask. We definitely need a better study than this one to understand how these things work. But this is optional, but very important topic, I would say.
Okay, Paul, we're going optional here.
Yeah, no, definitely optional. I'm going to just highlight Karen's comment because I think implicit in this article is this criticism of AI because they treat it like a tool. See, I told you you didn't do it right, rather than its kind of raw capability. And what Karen was talking about, it's just a super powerful raw capability that you need to put in more personality and approach into the prompt or systems or the skill file. And I think that's something that more people are slowly learning, and it's critical to get value out of this. So, but this article,
that is a very good point. I was reading the article and thinking it's upside down, really. It should have started with this is a raw capability. This is how from the decision-making theory, right, how to use it properly. That would have been more useful. All right, optional it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one comes from A16Z, and they are giving us the good news that AI will only eat application software.
Yeah, we have this sensational article names today. Karen, what did you think about this one?
Well, have you heard of the SaaS apocalypse? Because Mark Andreessen's company has, and they say it couldn't be further from the truth. What will change are the competitive moats that software companies are able to compete on. The first one that's going to change is the switching costs, because as agentic AI enters the software stack, we're seeing that it's easier to switch because model switching is no problem. We can obviously put any model we wish, smaller, larger, different vendor, Chinese, open source, closed source, behind any AI application that conforms within your enterprise guidelines. The same thing is happening with software applications. People who standardized on one CMS or one type of giant operational application will see new players emerge. And what this is doing is kind of turning the big players on their heels a little bit, or should be. And anything that is really subscription based, having lots and lots of change management associated with using it, might take a little bit longer to kind of unseat, but the new players that are coming in are really adept at weaving other types of applications with those big vendors. And you'll see this agentic play rolling out. I do think this is an essential article for business leaders. And, the reason is not only on the software side with the moats changing and how the competition is going to play out, but also how you can get ahead of the game. And you can use some of these agentic solutions to tie into legacy dinosaur systems, as John just mentioned, and to kind of pull out that value for your business to make it run faster, smarter, stronger, and all that.
Yeah, it has a number of model switches examples that actually I also found useful. Ankash, what did you think?
I was important on this one, Luda. I think Karen makes a good point that this has takeaways for all the current set of platform leaders on how they can go about navigating this new agent disruption. There's a very good example, something that Salesforce has been doing. So Salesforce has this product Agent Force, right, which they are promoting. But behind the scenes, they are doing two things. They are building their internal capability. They have 2,000 people on Agent Force now, but they are acquiring companies as well. So they acquired an agentic company which takes all the conversations that any sales lead is having with any of your clients and logs them in one place so that all that context is there. And then they have acquired another company which works on that context to provide insights to those sales reps. So while the core platform Salesforce, right, it acts as a database, the Agent Force functionality and these new acquisitions that they have done, they provide the overall agentic experience. Anybody who wants to use Salesforce, they can go to these tools, chat with them, and get those insights without getting into the nitty-gritties of the tool itself. So I think that's the value add that we will see within these platforms in the next 12 to 18 months, with more and more platforms doing this. And there's an interesting bit around pricing as well, where they are now pricing this based on outcome, which provides them additional revenue stream rather than just the per seat model that they were doing earlier. So I think an important read.
Okay, so essential, important. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I actually started out an optional in this thing. Part of the conversations getting me up to important, but I thought that the notion of how AI is going to change the nature of software, I thought he left out a bunch of things, like the switchability across models has a lot to do with your architecture and context architecture. If you don't have good context architectures, I think you have just as much, if not more, lock-in than you have in your traditional systems. So I was surprised that you kind of missed that it's choices. Switchability is a choice that has to be built in, and then I don't know. I never thought that the SaaS apocalypse was credible, because anybody who's ever, you just look at the implementation of any of these large complex systems, like everything from Workday to SAP and so forth. The ratio of services to software, places like Accenture, PwC, and so forth, for the old stuff was $5 or $7 of services to every dollar of software, and with the cloud folks is about 3. That tells you how much organizational embedding there is in these things, and the idea that somehow somebody who's vibe coding would go and make that work. I've been in meetings, I just wanted to shoot myself. We're talking about definition of customer for 2 hours. It's like I almost had a postal moment. It was like but in every every one of these things. So I don't know. I just thought it was very naive about how organizations actually work.
But there were Kevin Petrie is talking about. Look, they talked about the data. The context is the king, and that's really the mode. And so there's some really good observations in what's happening in this SaaS adjustment, I would call. Paul, where will you have a deciding vote here?
Yeah, I ended up on important here. I did forward this actually to 2 CEOs of software companies, because I do think the discussion on what's moats is good. I think it's naive. To start an article in such important discussion with what the current valuations in the market, I think is naive and misleading. Finance is fashion at times. We have an emotional category that's out of favor, and to somehow imply that that's the value of long-term. And second is, what are we talking about software? Is software large, complicated ERP systems? Or are we talking about software that creates an image? And I think we've seen no real movement at all of anybody replacing source of record truth that's highly embedded in the organization with deterministic and integrates and stuff here. So I thought it's important, but this is not essential in my view.
Okay. Karen, you live with important?
Absolutely. The data layer, as everyone's pointed out, is the key for organizations. So yeah, it's, I see that that organizations are going from, best UI to best model plus data. And so I think when you look at it in that respect, important works.
Yeah, okay. Important is, let's proceed. Oh, guys, we need to speed up. We're on the second article and we have lots to go. Okay, Ankash, please.
So the next one comes from Phoebe Yao, and she talks about how 90% of human expertise is not verifiable.
Yes, Ankash, please tell us what this is about and rate it.
Sure, Luda. So, Luda, I was between important and optional for this one. So, Phoebe Yao, she's a practitioner in the AI training data ecosystem. And what she's claiming is that the 90% of expert work or knowledge work that we do is not deterministic verifiable. And even in math and code, only 20% of the routine expert workflow is fully checkable. And then she argues that the reinforcement learning with verifiable rewards, this gets affected by weak reward signals, and also the training gets affected by over specifics in prompts, which are used to get better results on these different benchmarks. So what she says is that the current set of tests or the RLVR that we have, this is not fully useful, or this does not provide great results for most of the knowledge work. It's doing great in coding work, but for rest of the knowledge work, she says that we need to develop more methods which can test judgment heavy, non-deterministic work. So somewhere her claims are, I would say, right in a directional sense, that we are not there yet. But seeing the progress that Claude Code, Kovac, and others are making on the kind of non-deterministic judgment-heavy work, I believe this is an optional read for an AI leader.
Optional from Ankash. Karen, what do you think?
I'd agree with optional, and I can tell you from experience that some of these large data annotation houses are not only performing evaluations on model responses, they're creating rubrics by which to measure the quality, accuracy, knowledge and factuality, safety, and many more criteria metrics of each model response. And this came into play when reasoning models launched. So one of the things I'm seeing is that the annotation firms can do this. Also, your domain experts in-house are probably best positioned to do this as well. So not only do you put your knowledge based on your own enterprise into a test set, as Ankash was saying, but you give it the question, the golden answer, and then you rate it across criteria that affirm whether that golden answer is met. And that's really kind of a UX standpoint, and look at how to make AI LLM evaluations multi-turn and specific to your enterprise.
Yeah, but this is such a huge topic still, because I don't think we cracked that code. But optional, John, optional?
Optional, amateur day at the epistemology table.
Okay, going optional, Paul, okay?
Optional.
Okay, let's proceed to the next one, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from LinkedIn, and it talks about contextual agent playbooks and tools, how LinkedIn gave AI coding agents organizational context.
Yeah, I actually like this article. It talks about, it's a use case, LinkedIn putting together their own wisdom or context behind and building into a platform, essentially. Karen, what did you think?
It's funny. This is a cool case study. It's got a lot to it. LinkedIn sharing the framework that they created to give agents context to the systems that run their massive billion user social platform. When I started in AI, my first contract was actually with LinkedIn, and I found it really interesting to read this article a couple years later, 3 years later, and see that they've really figured something out. I do think it's an optional read, but their protocol and their framework of CAPT is based on MCP, widespread open source connectivity standard. that connects AI agents to different tools, and LinkedIn's sharing how they did this, solving the problem of not being able to connect between GitHub and their internal systems that run LinkedIn proper as we know it. So I would say it's optional for business leaders because it is a highly technical piece. But if you are in product management and obviously engineering, I think it would be something worth knowing.
Especially context engineering, capturing context to pass to those agents. I think that's the almost like the field that will become in limelight this year. Okay, Ankaj.
I agree with Karen Luda. This is an optional read for any AI leader.
Okay, John.
I had it as essential. I think that this is the best articulated article from somebody in production in terms of what I think the future architecture is, and the future architecture is not it's set in a software setting, but I think this is going to be the enterprise architecture. What this looks like to me is something that is a combination of kind of a messaging architecture, an object-oriented architecture, and a database architecture all together. And I think that we're evolving to a kind of quasi-open operating system with apps that are much more porous. And I think that this, to me, is the first articulation of something at scale, actionable, and things that AI leaders need to do today as they're implementing. A couple of our clients right now going to, start. We're putting together materials. Going to go back and say, hey, look, you really have to start thinking about context engineering, what that means for the environment, for the machines, and for the humans, and what that all looks like. So for me, this is absolutely essential.
Yeah, I was with you, John. I didn't want to say it earlier but Karen, you just missed it because it's technical, but this is really the architecture for the context capturing, right? Would you?
It is. Yeah. And, the other piece I took away from it was the way they created this architecture. They've got a handful, say a dozen of agents that are orchestrating tool calls to many different agents, some with contextual awareness. So I'm definitely coming up to important on it. But, I do think for a business leader, this one is a little in the weeds.
A little in the weeds. Yeah, it was difficult, and they didn't present it in pictures.
But Karen, our AI leader,
code and stuff. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Our AI leader has to at least be able to talk about architecture. I mean, you guys have this vision of an AI leader that kind of, I don't know, as my grandmother used to say, fell off the cabbage truck. I mean, these are technical people.
AI leaders for sure, but business leaders in general across the board. The case study being GitHub to large social platform. Is that widely applicable? Probably, maybe.
I'm talking about, I'm going to be sending it to a professor at Harvard Business School. It's looking at what the future jobs are and how you think about managing an AI environment. And he's not technical. And this is exactly where his research is going. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And so the alternative is semantic nets, and they have right to capture the context, and they're not as pliable as what they've created. So this is actually a cool alternative, and I think highlighting it is worth the work. Okay, let's put it essential. I will side with John.
Power.
He wins. Democracy is out the window.
No, okay. It's 2-2. You get to choose. You're the moderator. Come on.
Okay. All right. Let's go next.
Okay, the next one comes from NVIDIA, and it is advancing autonomous networks with agentic AI blueprints and telco reasoning models.
Okay, John, what did you think about this one?
Absolutely optional, super focused, interesting to somebody designing a telecommunications network, being able to optimize across different dimensions and adjust. Fantastic if you're a telco ops or designer, but optional.
Yeah, this is a big deal for telcos, actually. Karen?
Well, let's spill some tea, right? So our family pays $220 for 4 phones, $220 a month, $50 for internet, $85 for basic streaming TV. I'm not going to name the vendor. That's $355 a month. So I say, let's go, NVIDIA, let's break this thing up. And who doesn't want a lower cable bill? Like it's just obvious. I think everybody could benefit from this, and it's something to watch, especially as we have more play in the regulated industry space. I think this is kind of a good one.
Okay, so you were optional, or you were?
I'm important.
You're important. Okay.
Yeah.
Ankash, what did you think?
Yeah, I was optional Luda on this one. I agree with John. It's very specific to the telecom networks. A regular AI leader won't have any takeaways from this one. So, yeah,
Okay.
option.
Optional it is. Let's proceed to the next one.
Okay, the last one that we have for today comes from McKinsey and Company, and it's an update on US consumer sentiment embracing AI-supported shopping.
Yes, Ankash, please tell us what it's about. Very cool graphs, though. Really, really good, well presented.
Right, Luda, but not all of them are useful for us, right? So basically, it talks about how Gen AI shopping is getting mainstream. So they did a survey, and 68% of people mentioned that they use at least one AI tool in the past 3 months to do their online shopping, and it's highest among Gen Z and millennials, 85% of them, and it is also strongly correlated with income. Mostly the GenAI uses early funnel. So they use GenAI to research about products, to compare features, to compare pricing, etc. So I think some useful statistics for AI leaders from this one, or marketing leaders from this one, who are trying to get their leaders to give them budget for these AI assistants for answer engine optimization. I was between optional and important for this one, slightly going towards important because of the statistics involved, because of the stuff that marketers can share with their leaders, but otherwise nothing new in this one.
John, what did you think? Are you on mute? You're on mute.
Yes. I had an option on this one. I didn't think the insight. I didn't, think the insights were particularly helpful. We've talked about, the role of AI in shopping before, so I had it as optional.
Okay. Karen, what did you think?
I'd agree with optional. It is, though, telling when something goes through B2C into B2B. And I think that's where enterprise leaders in B2B kind of need to be conscious, because the behavior becomes shortlisting solutions without ever visiting a website. So that is kind of the thing that folks are trying to get a handle on, like how to get recommended by an AI engine or LLM.
Yeah, we'll see a mass of tools to try to help brands to really position it properly for AI engines. We'll already have a lot out there, but I think we'll see an army. All right, we have to the context creation. Kevin pitched in with saying he speaks to people, to data vendors, 2 to 3 times a week, and all of them are really, really working on this. Brenda is also voting essential. So John, we win, I think, on the context. All right.
That's on the dinosaurs.
As we are preparing the scorecard, let's see whether we have any announcements. Paul?
Yeah, we announcement. We had a really good learning lab last night, which is a Zoom call we have once a month. We had 420 people sign up and 250 people attended, and this was a demo on both Claude Code as well as OpenClaw. And so that video is now posted on the GAI Insights YouTube, and it was a really great discussion. And Karen, again, it just really reinforced to me that the world really wants to see people do things. I want people show me and not tell me. And lots of questions on, why was this chosen and what are looking. So this really this idea of demystifying these two really hot product right now, Claude Code and OpenClaw, was very well received. And you can watch a video on our YouTube channel.
All right. Thank you, Paul. So for today, we have one essential, one important, and the rest were optional. So thank you, Karen, for joining. Thank you all for pitching in with your comments. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye-bye.